Hi everyone, my name's Titus, and today I have another Unreal Engine tutorial on creating some pretty cool visual effects using materials and the Niagara system. I'm going to be working on a previous project where we created some teleportation pads, so if you watch my previous videos, then you can pick up right where we left off. But let's not waste any time and jump right into it. Alright, so we have our basic prototype. It's pretty simple. It's got some pads with some jump points around the map. And all it does is basically move the character into a different jump point. So let's see if we can spruce it up a bit. First thing we're going to do, come to our materials folder, right click and create a new material. I'm going to call it M_dissolved. And then I'll double click it to open it up. And then I'll dock it over here. The blend type is the wrong one, so we're going to switch the blend mode from opaque to translucent, and you'll notice it'll kick off a lot of these extra settings here that we don't need. I'm also going to switch it to a square and kind of zoom in because I got a little bit of a flicker for some reason. And starting off, we're going to be using a noise texture. So you can come to your engine content folder, and if you don't see the engine folder, just go to settings and then show engine contents right there. Just make sure it's checked. Open the folder, search T_noise, and this is the texture here that we're going to be stealing. So we drag it out here. I'm going to be creating a lot of nodes. You don't have to follow along with me 100%. You can actually deviate quite a bit, and you can still get some pretty cool effects. And most of the most of the values we're setting are going to be parameters, so we can play with them later. So, but I will list out everything that I do. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a parameter. So we can hold S, click in here, and we're going to call this the dissolved or dissolved amount. The default value is going to be 1, the slider min will be -1, and the slider max will be +1. We're then going to create an add node, so we'll hold A, click in, and we'll grab an add node. You can also right click, search for add, it'll be under the math functions, or you can pull it from your palette, whatever's easier. We'll drag off the RGB channel into the A, and then our parameter value we'll drag into B. And then we need a cheap contrast node. So under miscellaneous, cheap contrast there. Plug this into the top value, and we're going to create another parameter for our contrast number. So we'll hold S, click, and we might as well just call it contrast. I'm going to start with a default value of 50. I am not going to clamp it. I'll leave it open because we're going to mess with that a little bit later. And if we right click on the cheap contrast and do a start preview, we'll notice not a whole heck of a lot, and that's because our dissolve amount is already set to 1. So what we'll want to do is come over here. You can drag your slider just until, and you probably have to let go to let it build until you actually see some of the noise texture there. And you can pick an amount, doesn't really matter. Default will still be 1. The important thing to note is I'm going to invert this selection. So I want the black parts to be white and the white parts to be black. So to do that, I can just drag out here and do 1-. And then if I right click and preview this node, you can see it gives me what I want. All right, and then we can cut the preview there. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to come into an append node. So if we right click, search append, it's going to be append vector. Drag that into the A channel, and then we'll create another parameter. So we'll hold S, click, and I'm going to call this one intensity. I don't really have a good value. You'll see what this kind of does in a second. It's kind of like brightness, but it's different parts of the map, maybe map intensity areas. So I guess just intensity for now. I'm going to try a default value of 0.3. And I think actually I might lock that a little bit later. It probably should be between 0 and 1, but we'll leave it open for now. Then what I need to do is I need another texture sample, same one. So I can just highlight it, press Ctrl D. It'll duplicate it. Come over here and drag it into the UVs. So I'm left with something like this. Then I need another parameter, so I'll hold S, click. I'm going to call this one my line thickness. And I'm going to start with a 0.25, and I find that's pretty good. And then I need another cheap contrast node, so I can select my old one, press Ctrl D, duplicate it, move it over here, plug in the RGB, and then plug in my parameter. And now I need a lerp node, so I can hold L, click in the graph, there's my lerp. And then I need a constant 3 vector, and if you didn't know, you can hold 1, you can get a 1 constant vector. If you hold 2, you can get a 2 constant vector, and if you hold 3, and click into the graph, you can get a 3 constant vector. You can, of course, also come to your palette, and you can see them all down here. So I'm going to hold 3, click in the graph, and I'm going to hold 3, click on the graph again, because I actually need 2. And then this one, I'm going to set both of them to white, like so. And then I'm going to right click on this one and convert it to a parameter, and I call it color. And then for the base, I'm going to select the base one into the base color here. And then for my actual color one, I'm going to hook this into the B channel of my lerp node. My cheap contrast is going to go into my alpha. And then I need one last parameter. So we'll hold S, click in here, and this one's going to be my power. I'm going to set a default value of 10. I will not clamp those values, so we'll have it open-ended. And then I'm going to simply come into a multiply node, so I'll hold M, click on the graph, plug my lerp node in there, my parameter value there, and then I'm going to hook in my multiply node into the emissive color. And we're not seeing a whole heck of a lot, and that's mainly because we have no opacity. So if we come into our cheap contrast here, we can drag out the result into the opacity, and we can then click the line and add some reroute nodes just to bring it down, just so it's a little bit more organized, like so. All right, so we're pretty good with this setup. I'm going to go ahead and set my dissolve back to 1, which will just kind of white it out, and then we'll save. Now if we come back to our map, I am just going to maybe add a couple objects so you can see what's going on. So let's add maybe a cube, and then we'll also add a sphere. Alright, looks good. Off our dissolved material, we can just simply right click and create a material instance. We'll call it mi_dissolved. I'm going to drag this into here and drag this into here. Then if I double click to open that instance up, and I'm going to have to do some finagling here. Alright, so we have our sliders, so I can enable contrast, our dissolve level, our intensity, line thickness, power, and our color. If I drag the dissolve down, you will kind of see the effect that's happening there. It's pretty neat. Let me see if I can actually zoom in a bit here. Now this is kind of where the where you'll want to like mess around with the values to see if you can find something you like. For the power, we can go something real crazy. And then if we do, I think it's the intensity value here. Yeah, that changes like the parts of the map that kind of flash and glow. So you can get some interesting effects just with that. And it kind of changes, I think 0 was working pretty good for me. Or maybe it was 0.3, I can't really remember. Maybe right around there. And then the contrast as well. Oops, let me get something a little bit lower. But you can kind of get some interesting effects while messing with some of these values to actually get like a cool animation or, you know, whatever it is you're trying to go for. I think that looks pretty cool right there. Yeah, that looks pretty good. All right, and then if you wanted to mess with the color, you can come over here. You can maybe do like a cool blue, and then just changing the dissolve amount. You'd be getting that sort of effect. Maybe that's what you're going for. Or if you wanted to do like a red, and then we slowly dissolve, you'll see like the red effect there. And you can create multiple material instances too, so you don't have to like just change one. And let's see what maybe what a yellow looks like. Kind of like that. That looks pretty good. And one last one, we'll take a look at the green. Yeah, pretty cool effect. So now let's actually see how we can use this, because the way it is now, it's not very usable. We need a way to be able to change that through Blueprint, through code. The way we can do that is through a parameter collection. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to right click and duplicate, and I'm just going to call it dissolve 1, because I'll leave this one alone and then we'll mess with this one. So we need to change this one around a bit. Before we do, let's actually right click and under materials, let's create a material parameter collection. We'll call it PC underscore dataset. We can open that up. We can add a scalar parameter, hit the plus sign, expand the index. I think for me, I'm just going to be changing the dissolve amount, but effectively you could change any parameters. You could add multiple if you wanted to, you know, animate through a timeline, you know, multiple different things happening. But for just this simple tutorial, we're just going to be modifying this parameter value here. So you can call it whatever you want, but I'm going to call it the dissolve amount, or just dissolve. I'm going to set the default value to 1, and then I'm going to save it. And now, under our duplicated material, we can delete out this dissolved here, and we can search for collection. There's a collection parameter. Over here, just make sure you have data set selected, and you choose whatever name you gave it. So in this case, dissolve. And then I'll just plug this into the B channel, save. And then we're actually cooking with fire. So now what we can do, and it's obviously not going to affect those because those are under the different ones. We can actually change this around to affect our character. So I'm going to be messing with Quinn, the Quinn mannequin. She has these material elements here. She has 2 slots. So I'm going to change these to something a little more translucent. So she's going to kind of look like Tron. So we're going to be using, I found one of her texture maps in here. So let's go back, and I believe it is under here. Yes. So as long as you have the starter content, under characters, mannequins, textures, there's a Quinn folder. And there's 2 textures. There's this one and this one. I'm going to use this one for now. So essentially all we're going to do is we're just going to drag in here, and we're just going to replace our noise samples with Quinn. So I'll duplicate that, and I'm going to delete the color, plug that into B, and delete that there, duplicate that here, plug that into the base, and I got this weird translucent material. And now what we can do is, if we come back over here, I can create a material instance, call it mi underscore Quinn dissolve, or whatever you want to name it. And now if I go to Quinn, I can bring up their material slots. And I didn't make two, I only made one, so it's gonna look a little funny. I'll change them both though. Kind of look like this. And then we compile and save. And they're gonna look a little funny. Kind of look like Tron, I guess, with the weird haze. And that's because of that contrast node on there. But now what I can do is I can manipulate the intensity value here. So if we actually go into, well, let's see the effect first, I guess, make sure it actually looks okay. Let's go to our blueprint. We'll drag Quinn out. And then I can go back to my materials folder. Open up my dissolve. And I'm going to change the... Actually, no, I forgot. I can't change it through the material instance. I can only change it through the parameter collection now. So what was a good value? Like 0.3 or something? Maybe 0. Actually, what I should do, just for now, is I shouldn't have deleted that node. I should have kept it for a bit. All right, switch it back to dissolve. Plug this in here instead and save. Because this should be 1, because I don't want to mess with that before I forget. All right, now we got dissolve. I didn't clamp it, but okay. And power. Probably should have noted the, I guess I still can. It was like 2000 there. Yeah, what was this actually? Let's just copy these values. Let's make it easy. So copy the contrast. Paste that in there. Dissolve was, well, we're going to change that through the other thing. So intensity, we'll copy that. And line thickness was all right. And we'll copy that power. Hey, there we go. That looks pretty bright. All right, now let's go ahead and open Quinn up. It's funny, I changed the Unreal setting to dock things and to make my life easier, and it's so far not helping. Okay, so this is the default state. Well, I forgot to clamp it, so let me... It should be between -1 and 1. All right, there we go. So there's the full state, like when they're like on, and then when they teleport, the slider will update that, and you'll kind of see like this effect, which looks very bright, and then they'll go away, and then because it's a timeline, you can just reverse the timeline, and then they'll fade back into reality, kind of like that. It's pretty cool. So yeah, so let's save that. And we will go back to dissolve and we'll hook up our parameter collection instead so we can modify it through code. And we're going to open up our BP third person because this is the third person template. So let's go ahead and head over to the event graph. I'm trying to think if there's anything else we're going to need on the teleporter. No, I don't think we... Oh, you know what? We will have to change... Yeah, we might as well actually do it on the teleporter. It makes more sense. Okay, so let's do this. We'll drag off our validated get, pull it back here, And we might as well pull a play sound 2D. And I'm going to change to a longer audio cue. I think we had this one before, so we'll switch to this one just because we need the length. Pop that in there. Maybe pitch the volume down a bit. And there's our audio. And then from here, we can actually do a timeline. We'll call this dissolved. Actually, I probably should name that disappear, but I guess this will work. And then we're going to add a simple float track. We're going to call this the dissolve or dissolve amount. And then if you remember, we can pull the values off here. It was between -1 and 1. And when you're at 1, you're fully visible. When you're at -1, you're fully invisible. So starting with this one, we're going to go keyframe at time 0. We're going to be at 1. And then after, we'll do a timeline of 2 seconds. So we'll add a key at time 2. Will be -1. And then we'll just frame it kind of like that. So it'll be just a quick transition from appear to disappear. And then after it's done, we'll then call a new timeline for reappear. So I think I had a different sound. Let's get rid of this sound here. There's the teleport. And we can do it. Actually, we're gonna have to change this from update to finish. So if I hold control, hold control, put that on finished. And once this is done, it'll actually cast the character. Yes, that's what I want. So on the update function, we actually need to set the scalar parameter value. So you can right click and search scalar. And then there is this one right here, set scalar parameter value. We choose that. We can hook up the update function into this update function here. The collection is going to be our PC underscore dataset. That is our parameter collection we made earlier. And then the parameter name is going to be dissolve, and that is the element that you titled here, whatever you named here. So we'll plug in the dissolve amount into the parameter value here. And what that'll do is on this timeline, starting at time 0, it's going to set the value to 1, which it by default is, so nothing's going to happen. And then as time progresses, it's going to slowly move towards -1, which should disappear our character. And then after we disappear the character, it's then going to actually cast the character, do the teleportation, and that's basically just getting the actors transform, the rotation, getting our target actor, which if you didn't watch the previous video, we set up these little empties, and these are all our different targets, so it's getting their their locations, their world locations. And then it'll move the character over to there using this teleport function. Once the teleport function is done, once the character is actually moved, we can call another timeline. We can call this reappear, I guess. And then it's just going to be more of the same. So we're going to add a float track. We'll call this dissolve, because it's still the same dissolve amount. And it's just going to be the opposite. So we'll do it across 2 seconds. We'll add 2 keyframes. At time 0, the value's currently -1 because it's disappeared. At time 2, we want the value to be 1. And then if we frame that, compile and save, this should be the opposite of our disappear. So there's your disappear, there's your reappear. Now we need to actually update the value. So again, we can search scalar parameter collection or value. So do set scalar parameter value. And then under update, more of the same. We'll change the data set, dissolve, hook in the dissolve amount to the parameter value so it updates it. And I think with that, it should give us what we're looking for. So we can compile, save, and then we'll go ahead and give it a test. So if I teleport, and then I should reappear over here, like so. And that should work on any of these teleporters. Kind of like so. All right, but if you wanted to add a little extra bit of pizzazz, you can maybe do like a Niagara system. So we can go create a VFX folder here, and then we can just right click, do Niagara. I'm just going to use a template, so we'll hit next. I'm a big fan of fountain, so I'll choose fountain, plus sign, and finish. We'll call it ns_teleport. All right, and for my spawn rate, well, we'll start with the emitter state. So the emitter state shouldn't be infinite. It should just be once. I think 2 seconds is too long because this animation kind of goes quick. So I'll do 1 second instead. Spawn rate, let's do something crazy. Let's do 5,000 particles to make it beautiful. And then under the shape and velocity, we don't want to really do a sphere. We should probably maybe do a cylinder. Cylinder probably doesn't need to be too big here. I think 40, 60 is probably gonna be fine. Yeah, that looks all right. And then for the velocity, I think cone is probably okay. I usually like to make my particle systems pretty slow though, so I'll usually do like something like that. Because I'm usually turning gravity off, so the gravity force, I'm usually just gonna right click and delete it. And then maybe I'll go to drag and I'll increase the drag force to 1. So the particle system's slowed down a bit. And then under initialize particles, maybe I'll do something neat like a yellow. And then for the scale, maybe I'll do like a 0.3 and a 4. So they're kind of like small particles. And then if you wanted to kind of have fun with it, you can actually do scale color, change the scale mode to linear color curve, I think it is. Yeah, this one. And then you pick your one color, which in our case would be yellow. And then you pick your second color. Maybe you do, I don't know, like a blue, which would probably turn into a green. And then you can adjust your alpha value here, your opacity, bump it a little bit. That way the top of it kind of goes green over time. Bump it down if it's too intense. Something kind of neat, you know, kind of do whatever you want, just kind of play with it. And then we can come to the teleporter. And if we do control space, we can go to our VFX, highlight it, hit the plus sign, and then we can add the Niagara particle system here. And we can change it to auto activate off, if I can find it. Auto activate, there you go. And then under the code, under the event graph, I'm gonna just do it quick and dirty. I'll just drag off right at the begin overlap. I won't even check. I'll just do a set active NS teleport or whatever you named it. And another way to do that is you can drag out a reference into your scene and then drag off and do set active as well, if that's easier. And then I'll do new activate, compile, save. And now if I did that right, this one will work, but this doesn't point to anything, so I don't think it's gonna do anything. So you'll see the particles, but I won't go anywhere. But this one, you see your particles, it plays a sound, It teleports me. Voila. And you could probably play like particles on the reappear too, so you got a few different options, I guess. But yeah. Alright, good people, we'll cut it here to keep it short, but I hope you found some informative value in this topic that you can take into your own projects. But as always, thanks for watching, consider subscribing, and see you on the next one.